Okay, so thank you all for coming. This is the last session this semester. I'm very happy. I've done the work Pastor Kojo said we should do to my best, the best of my ability. So let me lay a foundation for this meeting. So this meeting is that climax or zenith of everything we've learned so far in 8 weeks. So we've learned the technical skills, the hard skills in the past 7 weeks, right? In between, we even had to hang out where we're supposed to network and interact and meet people and have connections, right? So today, we are talking about career visibility, building a professional network, having career plans, but from a soft skill perspective. Soft skill meaning communication, meaning being visible, and all of that. Kenneth, will you let me rest? Yeah. So today, feel free to ask questions at any point during the conversation with our guest. So our guest is one of the 12 people in Diamond who I classified as senior executives or senior professionals. So Diamond was the first group I led. That was July to September 2020. And there were like 12 of the 40 members who are like very senior in their career. When I look at their career and I look at my, I'm like, these people are people that you send a bill on LinkedIn and say, please come and mentor me. You know, those kind of people, right? So Kenneth is one of those 12 people in the demography of Diamond that were senior people. If you looked at his profile that I dropped, right? So he's going to share his experience. He's going to share. So he's here to answer all our questions. But let's talk about real life experiences in the office. How soft skills have maybe helped you or helped somebody. Is there a gist you want to talk about? That's why if you look at the breakdown, I said office politics, looking for a career sponsor, changing or transitioning. Some people are leaving some things to data. Some people are leaving data to maybe back end. You know, let's just talk about everything career, but from soft skills like networking, soft skills like speaking for yourself, speaking to people that matter on what you do. So that's the foundation. So we're going to drive the conversation today. Yes, Kenneth is going to lead it, but at any point you want to interrupt, you want to ask a question, please feel free and go ahead. Yeah, please let's all unmute and welcome Kenneth Igiri. Kenneth, good to have you. Thank you for coming for the very third time.
Thank you very much.
Please can you unmute and welcome
Glad to
Kenneth.
be here.
Welcome, Mr. Kenneth.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here. Okay, if you're ready for me, I'm ready to go.
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Please
thank you, Felicia. All right, so Felicia has paid a lot of glowing tributes to the 12 disciples that she formed in Diamond. I'm just one of the young disciples that she probably had in that group. So I'm glad to be here, and somebody says a player to have you. That's a kitty, it states English. All right, so I'm going to go through a presentation, but like, okay, please, Felicia, give me permissions to share. I'm going to go through a presentation, but like Felicia said, you will have the opportunity to just break in, make it practical, ask questions. A lot of what I'm sharing, I'm not an academic, I'm not a lecturer, professor, but I have like 15 years experience in IT, and some things I've seen here and there working for about 3 companies. So that's the basis, the background to what I'm going to share today. So we'll try to make it as practical, as real as possible, and get value from it. And I do hope that you get value. If you know someone, the hosts are still disabled participant sharing. If you know someone who may benefit from this, sometimes it's good for people to come into closed groups like this to hear a few things and it will be helpful to them. Right.
Can I please give me a minute to check how this is done? I'm using my phone and I'm not sure how to do it on my phone. I'm sorry.
No problem. So it's, I mean, it's just, I think under the security or check the participants, then security and allow sharing. All right.
Yes, so it's not a joke. Like, hey, I want not to be his friend. I can DM Kenneth at any time. Okay, yeah. So I think I've enabled this now. You can share now.
Great. All right. Yes, thank you. All right. So I'm just going to run through this, and then we will, at any point in time, you raise your hand or you interrupt me, and we'll be able to learn from it. So this content is actually part of a course that I publish in academia. I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but those that are relevant to this conversation, and I think they'll be very helpful to anyone in IT who is growing in that direction. It's called Career Growth Strategies in Information Technology. All right, this is a little about myself. And my main background, I've done most of my work in the database space, SQL Server to be precise. Before that, I was in service management. I was a service desk agent. I was a service desk manager. And then I moved into application support. I'm still studying. I'm studying for my master's in enterprise architecture management. I became an enterprise architect in 2019. And I've been learning in that area as well. I do some things online. I host discussions about Africa, about business, aside from my IT. And I also blog. I have a website, 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐤.com. All right, so introduction. This is the agenda essentially that we're going to look at. Like I said, not every single aspect of it because of the focus of this conversation. Principles of career growth, so the big picture, soft skills, and the 3 strategies which I formulated based on my experience with people. Peace. All right, so I like to start the conversation with a story or to infuse conversations, stories in the conversation so that make it more practical and real. So when I came out of school, and that's probably is a lot of us, our story, especially in Nigeria. I schooled in Nigeria, I was in Futo. And at the final year of school, everybody is asking, have you gotten a job here? Where are you going? And some people are saying, okay, I'm going to Abuja, I'm going to this. Maybe for some people, 𝐓𝐿𝐵𝐥𝐲 has already picked them. For some people, Mobile has already picked them and all of that. That was not my story. After school, because I started out my IT career in wireless networking. I used to do local radios, YDI radios, climb mast, install radios for internet service provisioning. I did that while I was doing my IT in 2003. And when I graduated, the fellow who led me into that also helped me. I went to Abuja to work for him for some time. For the first 5 months of my working with them, I didn't get paid. I didn't get paid while I was in Abuja. At a certain point, then there was this conversation about coming back to Lagos. And in my mind was like, I mean, I've not gotten paid for 5 months and now you're telling me go back to Lagos. And it's like, I mean, what am I going to tell the people I left in Lagos that I came to do in Abuja, all those kind of things. And one of the experiences I had then, which I'm going to share here, because it concerns the topic of soft skills, is one day, they say the person that involved me, his name is 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐤, and his partner was the senior person with the owner of the company. His name was, I think is Dennis Peters. One of the days, Dennis Peters calls me directly and asks me, I can't remember what it was he said, or I think he asked me to give somebody some money and he would pay me back because I think they had just paid for the first time. And I said no. I just said no because inwardly I was already angry about everything. So I was like, no, as in I'm telling my boss's boss, no. You understand? I was young, I was like upset. I mean, you have not paid me 5 months. You moved me to Abuja. I left some of my luggage because I was told I was coming back, but I never went back. And I helped them set up the base station in Ikeja, in 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐜𝐤 Jones. Now, I'm sure this is the story of many people, where something is happening in your environment. It's upsetting, it is annoying, but essentially you have to know how to deal with it. As a techie, you know you're skilled, but somebody else has a superiority over you and determines how your life turns out. On one of the days, I went through these kinds of jobs where I'm just working minor stuff, getting minor pay, until one of the days I worked with somebody. After I came back to Lagos and worked for some time, went for my service year and came back. I worked for somebody in Ogun State. That was in the outskirts of Ogun State, that the border between Lagos. What's it called again? 𝐵𝐲𝐻𝐵𝐻 area. I worked for him. He was trying to start a telco there. I did a little bit of job. He wasn't paying as well, but he would give a stipend for my transport. And on one of these, I was coming back on the last bus to my house. I met a colleague of mine, not a colleague, a fellow student who was leaving Airtel. So as she was leaving Airtel, she said, that I'm leaving Airtel, that do you want the opportunity? It's a contract job. And that was a Friday. He said, if you want to send me your CV, I sent her my CV later when I got home. On Monday, I went to the island, Victoria Island, to do something for this guy who was working for Ogun State. And I think somebody's mic is on. Mute. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. If you can mute, I think it's Joshua. So when I went to the island, I was just wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and I got the call that I should come for this interview for a service desk role. That is how I got into Airtel as a service desk agent on a contract basis before other engagements. So essentially, the point of that part of the story was that I was busy. I was out there. So maybe if you're still young, I don't know what the age bracket here is. Sometimes you feel that nothing is happening, but you have to sometimes make things happen. You're skilled, there are opportunities, you can volunteer. You're probably not going to get paid, you're probably not getting paid, but the point is being out there exposes you to the opportunities that you know nothing about. So out of school, early career sometimes, or even you've lost a job, sometimes being out there gives you the opportunity to get what you need from the audience, from the market, so to speak, being out there, being available. All right, I talk about the TDR intersection from this branch of the story. I had training in computer engineering. I have training in engineering. You know how Nigerian training is, broad stuff, Boolean algebra, all sorts of stuff that you probably will never use. But then you come out of school and brandish your certificate and say, this is what I want. This is what I know how to do. One of the mistakes we made at those early stages, we didn't chart our course. We didn't say, okay, with this paper that I now have, this is what I'm going to be in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, in the next 30 years. People don't think about that in Nigeria or in Africa. What people think about is, how can I get the next job? And that is another problem, because you are just out there looking for the next job. And when a job comes, the question you're asking yourself, how much is it fetching me in terms of money? You're not asking yourself, to what extent is it contributing to my long-term goals? And that is also a problem. So when that happens, you might find out that you may not grow in the trajectory that is meaningful over time. You may just find yourself jumping from one big paying job to another, sometimes with satisfaction, sometimes without satisfaction. So one of the advice I would give is, think about the long term. As you're taking the decisions about your career, as you're building your relationships, think about the long term. Think about how this contributes to the end game, you've defined. Sometimes that end game, often that end game is defined by these three concepts. What were you trained for? How much is involved? What is the market asking for? So you have to ask yourself those three key questions: your training, your background, the amount of money you want to earn as a person, and what is being asked for in the business. You see, you have to balance the three, because if you just tell yourself, I'm an engineer, I must be an engineer till death do us part, you may have a problem finding a place. If you're just thinking about the money, you might get a lot of money, but you find out you're not enjoying your job. You see, when you go to work, you work for minimum 8 hours a day. So if you don't enjoy what you do, you're going to be living a miserable life. There has to be, to some extent, an appreciation, an enjoyment of what you're doing in order for it to be meaningful. So there is the training, there is the balance of the reward. Not everything is just about the money. And then the demand, what is the market asking for? If you study quantum mechanics and you are in Nigeria, you probably need to go out in order to get a proper position for that, except you want to become a lecturer. That happened to me. At the point I said I wanted to do electronic circuits. Of course, I wasn't that exposed then. I could have probably looked for a scholarship or something to go out, but I thought to myself, there is no core engineering environment in my nation, so to speak. Why don't I do hardware? Of course, I did hardware for some time, assembly computer, that I decided that, look, this doesn't fit into something that can create a career. I have to probably go into networking and so forth. The story is for another day. So the point is balance these three options, balance these three aspects rather. Your training, the reward you're expecting, and the demand of the market in determining your long-term career. Remember, long-term career. There are certain models that you can use to discover yourself. They look like they are so academic, but then if you sit down with them, you may learn more about yourself that will help you decide where you fit in the whole career thing. One of them is SWOT. Another one is something called the Johari with window model. And I will not go deep into that. You can maybe research more on it because of the time and because of the focus of this conversation. So these models, these academic models, or other tools that you can use, even consulting a session, maybe seniors or mentors you can have discussions with around who you are, what they think of you, your perception, maybe it's your parents, your brothers, that will help you identify where you fit in the whole career picture. And that will help you know what to focus on in the long term, because the excitement of money will fade away after a little while. Then you start asking yourself, is this really what I want to do with my life? All right. Principles of career growth, learning hard. I'm told that you've done a lot of hard learning already. So I'm not going to make too much of a fuss about this, but I want to say that a lot of people, when you tell them to learn, all they are thinking about is how to acquire certifications. And if you've been working for long enough, you will probably discover that there are a lot of people who come into an interview with a lot of certifications, that their only skill is the ability to memorize and reproduce things. That's how they pass exams. Exams are passed by memorizing and reproducing. There are very few exams that actually drill you enough to determine what you actually know, and that is a case in IT, particularly because we have something called dumps. I'm sure everybody here knows about dumps, where you're able to read questions and just pass. So distinguish learning from simply getting a certification, and understand that even if you learned properly to get a certificate gets you access into the environment. You must keep learning in order to become and to remain relevant. And you probably find out that when you take your learning that you got from a Microsoft certification, Cisco certification, or Oracle certification course into a workplace, you find that there's certain nuances of the workplace that go beyond what is written in the books. Because in the workplace, you are integrating large amount of technologies together. And you need to think about how those technologies are working together beyond how each one works. So that is where the aspect of collaboration, understanding systems, being able to conceptualize systems comes in. All right, here, branding yourself. I will spend a little bit of time here. Now, a lot of IT people, in my experience, there are people that know a lot. They are very versed in their depth. I used to lead the database team for a while. There were about 16 of us. I brought in some of them, about 7 of them. And you find out that with the senior ones, you have conversations with some of them, and they know very much. They know a lot about their own area, the databases. They know a lot about those stuff. They can talk about it, they can solve problems, but there's a difference between being able to solve a problem technically and being able to sell the solution or sell the fact that you have solved this problem to, for example, top management. And life in the workplace is a lot about perception. Perception. A lot of it is about perception, not reality. That means that what people think about you can often weigh more as to the outcomes of your career goals than what you actually are. So while we're not talking about being a bootlicker or what do you call it again, showmanship, or just doing a lot of eye service, we're saying that you need to balance between what you know technically and what people see that you know, because that comes with a few things. That comes with communication, how you answer questions, how you present yourself, even on social media, how you tailor your CV. Maybe there's an internal role you're advertising for, how you leverage platforms, how you're able to write, how you document what you do, and so forth. So perception, nobody knows what you know until you let them know that you know what you know. And the way you let them know is not just about ranting in the meeting. It is about being able to communicate. And we're going to talk a little bit about communication as we go along. So your brand is not just about your photos. If you're in social media, or if you're on LinkedIn, for example, a lot of people, they set up their LinkedIn profiles and they just say, they put all the list of their certifications. That's great. But beyond that, in the context of social media, is the conversations that you're involved in on social media. There are certain conversations that you're involved in that go to polish your brand or to diminish it. There are certain things you say that go to communicate to the people watching that this person is involved with this area of knowledge. He knows what he's talking about. He's able to explain it. And somebody told me once that if you can't explain something to a 5-year-old child, you probably don't understand it yourself. And that is one of the problems I noticed with techies as I led them. A lot of techies, you ask them to talk about something in a meeting or something, they tell you, I can't talk about that, because they won't even understand what I'm saying. You see, that is an attitude that you have, that you are superior in your knowledge technically to other people around. And what that creates is that sense of superiority excludes you from the circles of those who can make decisions about your progress. What it means is that if you cannot if somebody is not understanding you, think about it that I am not explaining myself properly, rather than the person is too, sorry to use the word, dumb to understand me. A lot of techies, that is the perception they have, that look, oh, these people, all they know is how to talk, how to send emails, how to ask how far, and how to do presentations. I can't explain database to them. I can't explain VMware to them. That if you continue having that kind of attitude, you won't be able to brand yourself properly. And these days, branding is not just about brandishing your certifications, but being able to communicate the knowledge that you have. Because you see, a boss of mine once told me that these days we're not looking at stars anymore. We're looking at constellations. Can you work with people? Can you collaborate? Collaboration, there is communication. Can you explain what you're doing to us? Can you explain how you... In my place, a lot of people had problems doing incident reports or root cause analysis, because the bosses want to know. Those who have put their money in the technology want to know why it's not working, or why it failed, and how you restored service, how it can, the problem can be prevented. I'm sorry about my background noise. I hope you're not too loud. How it can be prevented. People want to know that. Your bosses want to know that. The customers want to know that. You can't just explain it away and say we restarted the database. Your ability to communicate the reality in simple terms is a way of polishing your brand in the eyes of those who are listening to you. So that's very important. And that is whether you are doing it online or offline, whether you're doing it within that workspace or externally. Every time you need to explain something to someone, don't think about it like, oh, these people won't understand what I'm saying. Ask yourself, what is the best way to communicate this concept that the people, that my audience will understand it. I will talk more about communication shortly. Okay, that's branding yourself. Then the third one is building bridges. Remember, in this section, we're talking about career growth principles, learning hard, which we're all familiar with, branding yourself, and then building bridges. Relationships matter. Relationships matter. All the roles that I got so far in my life were done because someone knew what I knew. I will tell you the short story. I've told you already how I got into Airtel because a friend was living there and she essentially gave her a post to me. I eventually did the interview and all that, but I got the role. I was in Airtel for until what, 2011. And I got the permission to study SQL Server, I think it was 2010, excuse me. And I started studying it because I was doing application support back then. And then, of course, people knew I was studying SQL Server on the floor. I was on the 4th floor at Banana Island back then. Yeah. One of the days, a senior officer comes, a senior colleague comes from the 5th floor and looks around and says, "Who knows SQL Server here?" And then Yinka on the other end points in my direction and says, because they knew I was studying it, I had those relationships that I once in a while speak to people, I mean, all of that. And he said, "Come, give me a number." And I gave him the number. If a former colleague of Airtel, who was his friend in Accra, took my number, called me and asked me about SQL Server. He said what I was interested in the role, because in Accra, they needed someone to handle Postilion. Postilion is the ATM switch. And all the DBAs in the company were Oracle DBAs. People wanted to even keep away from the solution because there was a lot of politics around it, which I'll speak about shortly. So they called and said, "Oh, I need you to take care of this for me." And essentially, I did 3 interviews over the period of November 22nd, 2011, I got the offer. After I got the offer, and I wrote the second exam in SQL Server, as a matter of fact. So on January 2nd, 2012, I came to Accra, and I was the DBA in SQL Server up to 2019. And from then, I even learned quite some Oracle, because it was largely an Oracle shop, but they needed somebody for the SQL side. One of the things that I experienced when I came here was that the day I walked into the switch room to be announced as the person who was the database person who will help with Postilion, somebody openly laughed at me in that room. It was the switch room, maybe 5, 6 people there, that they have brought another masquerade. Obviously, they had been having challenges managing the platform performance, and it was a simple problem. That simple problem, I had learned it in Airtel. It's called address windowing extensions. 32-bit applications cannot address more than 2 gig of memory. You probably know what I'm talking about. So about 3 to 6 months within my environment there, I implemented address windowing extensions. It's a configuration of Windows that allows 32-bit solutions like Postilion, as it was then, to address more than 2 gig of user address space in memory. And that was it. Now, the point I'm making there, part of the point I'm making here was that relationships giving you access into the place. Because if the relationships do not give you access, you don't even have the opportunity to express all the things you've learned as per your hard skills. All the coding you know, all the database, all the structures, all the whatever it is that you know, it is when somebody brings you into a space that you are able to demonstrate that you know this. And I want to tell you that there are many, many people out there who have many, many certifications who still do not have the jobs that match what they have learned. A lot of the access you will get is based on the relationships you form. There are certain principles around relationships, and I'll just share it now. Before I do that, I just mentioned here in this slide that you build your relationships, but don't be a bother to people. You find some senior person and every day you're telling him, "Son, just checking on you," because you think he'll give you a job. It may not happen that way. Always come with something to give. Come with something to share from your own experience, and make more friends than enemies. Don't go about in the office finding out what people are doing wrong, reporting people. Face your work and do your work nicely. Relate. There will always be evil people in the world. And if you make yourself the person who is calling out every evil person, you're an activist, not a technologist. That's by the way. So relationships. One of the core concepts of relationships is respect. Whoever you're dealing with deserves to be valued, to be esteemed, whether it's a junior person or a senior person. I think 2 weeks ago, I was having a conversation with the guys who take care about VMware environment in my current company. And one of the things I learned about them is that they are colleagues. The one who is a boss to him, to the other one now, used to be his subordinate in another company. So it's very important that whether you are dealing with someone in lower in rank than yourself or otherwise, respect. Talk to people with respect. Value people. Value their time. Value the fact that they respond to you when you call them out of office hours. Understand, have a good way to present even their failures, even when they are not doing things right. Have the proper words or manner in which you address them to communicate that you want it done this way. Respect, critical. Engagement. Engagement means talk to people. Go out of your way to find out about what people are doing, whether it's related to work or in their families. Go out of your way to ask people about their lives. Engagement. People remember you when you are able to engage. Is someone asking a question or someone need to mute? People remember you when you ask about them, when you talk to them. If you think about all the people you've worked with so far, you find out that most of the time, the reason you remember someone is not necessarily, someone asked me, please, I don't know who it is. I think it's 𝐂𝐥𝐤𝐤 𝐒𝐇𝐎𝐖. Please mute. Please mute. If you can hear me. Okay, hello. Felicia, if you could please mute 𝐂𝐥𝐤𝐒𝐇𝐎𝐖 𝐒𝐿𝐿. All right, so engagement, go out of your way, because you see, when you think about people in your workspace, most of the time you remember people not because they brought up a server for you, not because they solved a database problem for you. Amala, are you there? You need to mute, please.
Okay.
Yeah. So you obviously remember them for something intense that they did for you. Maybe you are in trouble. For example, once in a while in those days when I was a DBA, someone will come and say, "Hey, I dropped a table," you know, and I have to recover it. Nobody tells anybody, but I have to find a way to recover it from the undo or something. They remember it for those kind of things. Somebody who have deleted this, is there any way out? and so forth. I made a mistake. People remember you for the things you do that add value to them. So engage with people. Let people find you friendly, so to speak, even in the work environment. And you build relationships that last beyond the workplace. Loyalty, very important. Even when you're working with a boss that is not so nice, you don't go out in the open and start saying that my day has come, my opportunity has come. You see, I told him this thing, he didn't listen to me. You're talking to your CEO about your boss. It doesn't make sense. Loyalty, stay loyal. Stay within of your role. Part of your key role is to make sure your boss is happy, your boss is protected. So show loyalty to your boss, show loyalty to your colleagues. these days in the workplace, in the workplace of politics, a lot of people are used to saying, cover your behind, cover your own, make sure you're protected. It is good to do that. At the same time, don't go out of your way to make a mess of people's careers, exposing them for their, whether it is their mistakes or their incompetencies. Don't do that. Everything that goes around comes around. You will meet that person in another space. It is guaranteed. Your career is probably 30 years ahead. It's guaranteed that you're likely to meet that person again. That's how it happens even in IT. So show loyalty. Let people not think of you as someone that betrays the group. It doesn't mean that you get into lying and making up stories. It just means that you don't expose people's weaknesses in the public. Stay loyal. Attitude. I talked about attitude earlier. Have a right attitude. Be willing to help. Be willing to help. Be willing to be corrected. Be willing to listen. A lot of techies, they don't listen. Techies don't listen. Techies think, I know everything. I know what I'm talking about. But you see, the thing about technology is that a lot of time, because you're an expert in a particular area, you're thinking only about that area. Your thinking is skewed, but you don't know. You don't know that you are biased. You are biased around what you know. You are biased around your own limitations. So you are always thinking you're right. You say, I told them, I told them. You should stop once in a while and ask, what did they tell me that I didn't hear? I mean, I think it was Stephen Covey that said, seek to understand before being understood. He also talked about listening in some context in that. So attitude, have the right attitude, willing to learn, willing to share knowledge. That's another area where a lot of techies feel that, you see, I know that knowledge can never be exhausted. I did a lot of work in SQL Server. Today, as we are advancing towards cloud computing, a lot of the things I'm able to do as a SQL Server administrator is no longer necessary. Nobody is interested in aware anymore because nobody uses 32-bit systems anymore. If you say, oh, I want to do some tuning, start putting in MaxDub and all that, or writing code to correct performance problem, those things are fading away. So if you didn't use the knowledge or share the knowledge while it was needful, your hoarding it is not valuable. So have the attitude of sharing, have the attitude of engaging with people, working in teams, being willing to listen to another opinion, be willing to listen to another suggestion, another way of doing things. You see, I find when I was younger, I found myself, I could sit on a problem for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, trying to solve it in a particular way. But someone could come around and just say, why don't we just do this? Because he's thinking broadly, he's thinking differently. For it can be as simple as there's a problem with the live environment. You have a DR. You spend 2 hours trying to solve that problem when you can do a DR switch in 30 minutes. So the big picture thinking says, switch over and solve the problem later. But sometimes as techies, you want to prove yourself that you can solve the problem. And you spend a lot of time. And then when you eventually give the incident report, people are wondering, why did it take you so long to do this? Because it takes a long time to discover the cause in the first place. People don't understand that. So in order to manage that expectation, think about it, have the attitude that is open to suggestions about other ways to solve the problem. Attitude, important. Right, truth, integrity, be able to say the truth in the right context. There are people that you need to tell the truth to. And when you are relating with people, you need to be able to tell the truth. For example, you're in a team, you've made a mistake. Depending on who your boss is, how it's like, who your teammates are, you should be able to say, this is what happened, so that we can solve the problem quickly and move on, right? So that we can solve it quickly and move on. Have that attitude of saying, yes, I'm vulnerable, I can do this. And truth also demands something from you. Let me tell you what it demands. You see, if there are policies around how changes are done in your environment, it's important for you to follow them. Don't say, oh, these people, they don't even understand. They're just telling us all this bureaucracy, that we have to go to change, we have to log this ticket, we have to do this, we have to do that. If there are those policies, it makes sense to follow them so that when you need to tell the truth, or when something goes wrong and you need to tell the truth, it won't be difficult to do that. You won't be able to, because if you've broken processes, broken policies, breached or circumvented processes, what will happen is that you are not struggling on how you tell them that you did this without an approval. So in order to tell the truth, you need to understand that you as a techie are part of a bigger picture. You cannot do things by yourself. You're part of a bigger picture that is regulated by certain governance structures. Take the time to follow them so that when it's time to tell the truth, you won't be afraid to tell the truth. Empathy. Feel for the other person, the colleague, the boss. Feel for him. Think about your boss. You see, a lot of time when we as techies are operating, we're saying, he's the one that will go to the meeting to go and defend it. We are here. Then you're not thinking about yourself. You're not saying, what if I was the one to go to that meeting to defend this? How will I defend it? How I became the head of DBA was interesting. And during one of them, there was a discussion, two of the guys in my floor they were having with my then boss. His name is Jerome, and the other one, Charles. I didn't know they had gotten offers from AWS. So Charles asked me, do you think you want to go the path of technical lead or manager? I said, I never want to be a manager. It wasn't up to 2 months. Jerome left and I became the head of the DB team. So I had to now become a manager. So you may never think of yourself that as a manager at the point where you are. You think, someone will always be there to go and play the politics for me. It's not true. And depending on your career path, you may need to embrace that politics. So think about it this way. What if I was the one that had to go to that meeting with the board, or that meeting with the CIOs, or that meeting with external parties, vendors? How would I explain this situation? Begin to think that right-brained thinking. Think about that boss that has to do that. Think about your colleague that has to take over from you. Maybe you're running a shift and there are certain things you ought to have done. You're handing over. What are you handing over? How would that person handle what you're handing over to him in that context? Because those are things that build relationships that are strong relationships with people that will recommend you later, whether they are your bosses or your colleagues. They will recommend you later because of the kind of relationship you have formed with them. Right. I hope I'm communicating. Somebody just type something in the chat and let me know that I'm getting through to you. Just do it quickly in the chat. Let me just know. And if you have questions, you can also drop them and I'll try to address them. All right, we're going to talk about a set of soft skills, like we said. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about communication, presentation, negotiation, and teamwork. All right, communication. I talked about this earlier, and I'm just going to, are we still there? Yeah. Let me see. So I'm just going to just highlight it again. Now, this is someone trying to get approval for to do a task. And it says, we need to create a primary key on the trunk log table. It is a heap. The B3 index on the other column that is that is used in the word clause predicate will also, the B3 index on the other column that is used in the word clause predicate will also help a B3 help improve. That's the index will help improve performance. When he says this, the question is, who is he talking to? Right? Somebody else comes and says, the Biller platform is currently processing 10 transactions per minute. We can do some tuning at the database layer to increase this to 50 transactions per minute. If you're talking to executives, they probably listen to you with the language you use on the green box rather than the red box. In the red box, you're speaking to yourself. And you see, if you want to communicate, you need to speak the language of the hearer, not your own language. You must be speaking the language of the hearer if you want to communicate. You can't be speaking your own language, because your own language, if your objective is to pass across information, let it be the language of the hearer you're speaking, and you still be saying the same thing. For example, if you wanted to tell a 5-year-old, what is the database? And you tell the 5-year-old, it is it's a relational structure that you're able to, write transactions to and all that, use all those terms. What if you tell them, oh, we put things in the database so that we can easily retrieve them or literally get them out when we want, fast enough? Think about it like a container where you're packing your toys. So you speak the language of the hearer. That's communication, right? Always think about that. If you need to talk to someone, is it top management? Is it your boss? Is it a vendor? Is it a child? Is it your junior colleague? Even when you're a boss, you've had 10 years experience, you have a new staff that joins. The way you're talking to him about what he needs to do will determine whether he's able to do effectively or not. Think about the person who you're talking to in your communication. We talk about presentation, and these are also aspects of communication, because in communication, we talk about written communication. We talk about another kind of communication, that is oral communication and so forth. In doing presentations, you have visual communication in doing your presentation. It's a skill that a lot of us have to learn as we grow up, because at a point in time, you need to show what you're doing beyond just being able to do it as per typing, as per coding, as per resolving issues. Can you show us what you're doing with a communication tool like PowerPoint? Somebody shows the picture in labeled A, and he's trying to communicate something. If I show the picture labeled B, I'll probably be able to communicate the architecture better to an audience that is looking at me presenting for a short period of time. That is important. Learn how to show those pictures. Negotiation, another important part. I told the story when I started about how I said no to my boss's boss who owned the company. There are times like that where you're so angry about what you're getting that you begin to become antagonistic, or begin to be hurt inside, affecting the way you deliver your work. Somebody says, I want to ask for a raise. And he says, I've been working very hard. Every day I leave here by 10 p.m. Please promote me, sir. And the guy tells you, if you're leaving by 10 p.m., it means you're ineffective. I don't know whether you guys have seen that Indian quote by someone that says, if you're leaving work after 5, that means you're not effective with your work. You don't know how to prioritize it. So a CEO, a CIO can have that perception. He can, and he'll be justified because he doesn't know what you're doing. He'll be justified in saying that, look, you're not effective. That's why you're spending so long in the office. What do you mean by raise? What do you mean by, what do you call it again? Bonus or whatever it is that you pay for extra hours. You're not effective. And he can tell you that. And it could be true that you're not effective, as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, it could be true that technically you're not effective. Let's think about it this way. Assuming I'm supposed to do indexing on 50 databases every week. And I come on Saturday, I log into database 1, alter table, what do you call it? I've forgotten most of the commands, forgive me. Alter table this, rebuild, index, whatever. One, then log into the second one, alter table. Then after you have spent 6 hours, you say I'm working very hard. Meanwhile, there are ways to automate that. The tools already have ways to automate that. That you can create jobs to do that, and they run by themselves and send you a report. You can acquire a tool to do that and all that. But you are trying to leverage on the exertion of energy in order to negotiate for a raise. There are certain levels of management, they are not interested in your exertion of energy. They are interested in your delivery of results, not effort, but results. You see, so you ask yourself, how can I better deliver results? How can I better deliver results that I'll be able to say, this is what I've done? And somebody else says that, look, sir, last year we were able to improve performance of the biller platform. We developed a dashboard for treasury that saved the company $50,000 by building the mobile app internally. Can I ask that these be considered in my appraisal? So that communicates some few things to the boss. He says that, look, biller platform, this is something I know about, right? It is not database table that I've never seen before. I have saved the company $50,000, a specific measurable metric. They call it SMART, right? SMART KPIs. It's a metric that we can all measure. This is the amount that was saved. Can I ask that these be considered in my appraisal? Not, I want more money. I want you to appraise me based on these facts. Then I can negotiate a raise. Okay. Earlier I asked to whether I'm still communicating. Put something in the chat to let me know I am. All right, then teamwork. Together, everybody achieves more. I talked about that when talking about the attitudes, being able to work with people. Don't try to be the shining star. Try to be the person, the part of the constellation. You see, when you always try to be the one who is shining, your teammates begin to see you, in Ghana we say some way. They begin to see you as this guy. He just wants to be seen. He's trying to get promotion. Try to work with people. Try to ask for help. Try to render help. Try to ask for people to contribute to the solution so that it is faster. The solution is faster. Everybody in the team gets the glory, so to speak. Again, so together, it is a fact that you will always see it. The stress is less because the weight is not on you alone. It's a shared burden in solving the problem, in delivering the solution. You all rejoice. You have different points of view. You can hand over to someone. If you find yourself in a role where you can't hand over to anyone, you need to review it. You need to review it and ask yourself, how can I do this job so that it becomes teamwork rather than just my work? Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on that, on those soft skills. I'm going to go into other aspects of this 𝐂𝐤𝐤 subject while still touching on the aspects of soft skills. And we're going to talk about the career plan, money versus meaning, and the actual three strategies. Okay, I mentioned earlier that the career plan is a long-term thing. You ask yourself, where am I going in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? It's never a perfect plan. I mean, it never gets fulfilled perfectly, but at least you know what you're targeting. If you don't know what you're targeting, you have already missed. But at least if you know what you're targeting and you miss, you know that you miss and you make the correction. So career plan is a list of short and long-term goals and actions you can take to achieve them. Some things happen that are like disruptions. And in planning your career, you should always be ready, like I say, to pivot. Sometime in 2016, I was in a session, I was in a session with, it was a town hall meeting, and the CEO gave a list of things we were doing, about 10, maybe like five to 10 projects, and talked about the fact that we are employing people to do those projects. And then talked about the fact that we are going into automation, digital. So in my mind, I asked myself, why are you employing people, more than 500 people? My company is a small company, we work for a bigger bank. And you are saying that you are doing projects that will lead to automation, robotic process automation. You're saying that we're going to cloud computing. That time, that's when I did my AWS certification. At that period, I started doing cloud, started migrating away from DB, core DB. And then I asked the question, I said, what happens to these people who you're employing to do this project? Because when the project is over, the people that are involved in the project are no longer, they have to look for new roles, right? When the project is over, it creates a new kind of environment. So you always have to put a picture in that. What is happening out there in the world? What's happening with AI? What's happening with cloud computing? What's happening with the digital space? What's happening in my organization? That also feeds into your career plan. It's something you have to modify and say, okay, now that we are here, this is what I planned before, but now things have changed. Can I review my plan? Because it's long-term strategy. You prepare yourself to be part of the future. That's the plan, that's the strategy. Prepare yourself to be part of the future. So in planning that, I mentioned earlier the issue of balancing the interest, your interest with rewards and education. Interest means I want to be a DBA, but look, DBAs, nobody needs them anymore. Can I review my plan? Is a question. And that's why I said be prepared to pivot, to move into another area that is maybe related to your area, but that you can easily, move into. So have that plan and be ready to review that plan often. Often you have to ask yourself that question about money versus meaning. Do I like what I'm doing, or am I doing it only for the money? I mentioned earlier that you spend 8 hours minimum at your place of work, 1/3 of your life. So it has to be something you have at least some interest in. Always think about it that way. And one of the things I also noticed that as you grow in your career at a certain level, you're no longer bringing up the database. I keep talking about database because that's my background. Bringing up the database is no longer as exciting as it used to be. There's a bigger picture you need to think about. It may be that money is now more important. Then you need to feed the family. It may also be that self-actualization. You ask yourself, my mates are building companies and I'm here bringing up databases. You need to think about that. Is that really what I want? It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that you have to agree with yourself that that is what you want. And that brings us to the 3 strategies. That brings us to the 3 strategies: the veteran strategy, the SME strategy, and the CEO strategy. So a strategy is a careful plan of achieving a particular goal over a long period of time. That's important to think about the big picture, think about the long term, think about the broad scope. So there's the veteran strategy, which we are all, which a lot of people operate with. The people that operated with this mostly are those who are born in my father's time. They tell you that, look, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Stop jumping from job to job. Just stay in the job. You'll grow. And then in 30 years, you become a senior officer. But you see, everything in this life is a pyramid. What it means, I used to be in multi-level marketing, so I know about pyramids. Everything in this life is a pyramid. That means that there's little space at the top. There's little space for everyone. Not everyone will become a CIO. Not everyone will become a CEO. Not everyone will become top. So what happens is, if you're targeting a veteran strategy where they are going to reward you simply because you stayed there for a long time, it may not work in this day and age, right? You run the risk of becoming a relic. That means you're just there, they're just bearing with you, just doing your job mundane, and then they're just every day they greet you. They say, how are you, sir? Are you okay today? Yes. How's the family? And then they move on. And you're like, your life is just there because you never plan. Your plan was that they will like you because you stayed long with them. It doesn't always work that way. That's one strategy. Sometimes it works. They give you respect because you've been there, depending on kind of work you do. But that is one strategy which I think is outdated. The other strategy is the SME strategy, SME for subject matter expert. I think I've been speaking for over an hour. Okay, subject matter expert. That means you focus on an area. Maybe you become an Oracle certified expert. Maybe you become, what do you call it? A cloud expert. You're so good at this that if they wake you up and ask you about this area, you're able to answer. Then what do you do with it? You don't just stay in your company. You don't just say that your strategy is that at some point I become a consultant and I do this for several companies. At some point I go out to do speaking engagements or maybe technical sales, because at that time I'm no longer interested in hardcore coding. So it's something you learn and you now say, I want to deliver the value of my experience in this core area to another audience. And I can tell you that it requires being able to do that more than just that core area you know. It requires communication, it requires relationships, it requires selling skills, it requires presentation skills, and so forth, if you want to go through this strategy. Then the other part is the C-suite strategy, and that means I want to become a C-level executive. I want to become a CIO, CTO, CFO, whatever it is, a technology leader. And you find out everyone that has made this kind of moves, in my experience, they move from one role to another, maybe 5 years here, 3 years here, 5 years here, 8 years here, until they rise to the peak. The reason is that every time you make a career move, the perception of your value increases. Everybody feels, it means he must be good for people to be asking for him. I've known someone who made a career move that he took less pay because he needed that experience to move to the next level, right? It's not a CIO actually. It's a strategy that says, look, I'm learning, but I'm moving. I'm moving because I need to gather a broad range of experiences. I'm moving because I need to show that I'm valuable. I'm moving because my bosses are not going to be shifting for me. I need to leave them and move laterally or move upwards without pushing them away, right? Because if you're doing that longevity thing, that veteran strategy, you have to wait for people above you to be promoted, and not everyone gets that. So a C-suite strategy means I want to keep changing roles, moving in having a plan, a strategy to navigate that space until I get to the point where somebody can call me in to play the role of a CIO. You know that most of the time those roles are appointed. And if you check your company very well, like mine, you find that a lot of those top level roles, people hardly grow into them within the organization, hardly. Most of the time, somebody is picked from outside to play them. So those are three core strategies: the veteran strategy, the SME strategy, the C-suite strategy. So in this section, I've essentially spoken about career growth strategy in information technology. And I've tried to focus on the soft skills, and I've tried to talk about these three strategies as I see them. And I hope it has been useful. If anyone has a question, please go ahead and ask. So I'm ready for the questions or contributions or discussions. And that is my logo. If you want to connect, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and so forth. And for some of the other things I do, you can catch me on kennethigiri.com. So Felicia, are we there? Maybe someone needs to unmute to speak. I can't hear anyone.
Yeah, we are here. We're here, sir.
All right. All right. So if you have a question, I'm ready for you. If not, I'll hand the button over to Felicia. And I hope that some people will be interested in connecting. I see very good presentation. Okay, thank you, Adam. Adam is here. Thank you. Adam is my colleague, powerful person too. Thank you for that feedback. So if you don't have a question, maybe you can give some feedback. Or what aspect of the conversation struck you the most? Maybe you have an experience you want to share.
I mean, the session has been educative and I really learned something. I think the most educative part of the session is basically the strategy part. I mean, for me, I mean, when you talk about the veteran, the SME, and also the C-suite, so I think that's a lot. That's a lot for me. I mean, when it comes to my own career progression, I think I really learned past that.
Great. Thank you so much for that feedback. So I think Adam is asking, what do I need to consider when communicating to a targeted audience? In my opinion, the first thing is, what do I want to say? And then I ask myself, is what I want to say relevant for this audience or useful? If it is relevant for them, then I ask myself, how do I construct this statement so that the audience can understand? So that means you have to know the audience in two ways. Is what I want to say relevant for them? And if it is relevant for them, depending on what I want to say, I now have to construct it in a form that is understandable by them. Otherwise, what happens to people is that when people don't understand something, they don't want to concede that they don't understand it. They will rather ignore or shut down, or just, especially in a professional environment, nobody wants to accept that he doesn't know something. So he just pushes aside, or he brings up another idea because he didn't understand your idea. It's not that your idea is not good, but he didn't understand your idea. So he pushes it aside and brings up another one. So you have to consider the context and the substance you want to deliver, the person who is involved, the audience that is involved, and how you're going to construct it to deliver the value. Okay, thank you. I hope that is helpful. I'm seeing a question from Kumi that says, what would you advise someone who has been following the veteran strategy to do a speed of growth? I need to be frank with you. The veteran strategy, I do not think it is guaranteed. Of course, I'm speaking purely from the IT space because IT is by nature disruptive. There may be other areas of endeavor that allow you to just pass time, and time becomes a primary indicator of your worth. But in IT is not always like that. So you find that a lot of people, they are stuck where they are because they were banking on time, and people are just bearing with them. So you need to, if you're following that strategy, you need to now ask yourself, okay, can I learn something new? Can I think of another way to really get to that CIO level I want to get to, that senior level I want to get to, with new knowledge, new experience, a different work environment? Just ask yourself whether you can do that and try to pursue it, right? Taiwo is asking, if you are in an organization and looking to start yours due to the job is no more satisfying, and they don't want you to leave, what do you do? I like that one. You see, I remember in my organization, sometimes you have to move roles by moving from one department to another. And sometimes it's difficult to let your present boss let you go because your boss doesn't want to lose a good hand. So it's like a dilemma. You are good at what you do, and then it becomes a problem for you moving out of that role. So that may be the case. They are not letting you go. If that is the case for you, maybe you have an opportunity to negotiate. Maybe if you're really that good, you can negotiate and say, okay, guys, I can work for you 4 days a week. I need my Fridays to work on my business. Maybe there could be cases where you can do that. Or guys, can I work from home 2 days in a week? Or I mean, if I'm really that good. I mean, because not letting you go is a big thing. So, I mean, I just want to, those are some thoughts in my mind. Can you use that as negotiating power while using your own free time to build your business? Thank you, Segun, for the feedback. All right, that was the last question. I hope I've been able to answer those, and I hope this has been valuable. I think our time is up. So I'll just hand over back to Felicia if you're available. Are these students? Oh, okay, sorry about that. That was private. I didn't. Okay, so I've answered that privately. So Felicia, I think I'll hand over the mic back to you.
Sorry, let me get to where it's not noisy.
Okay.
Kenneth. Let me just step out. There are some questions in the chat box. Oh my God.
Yes, I responded to them already.
You already did. Okay.
Yeah.
Please, if you have further questions, please go ahead and unmute your microphone or raise your hand. I mean, that's the Zoom etiquette. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have further questions. If you have further questions, comments. Okay, somebody just dropped something. Oh, yes, that was it. Thank you. If you have questions, comments. Anybody?
Okay, so I think I already answered 3 questions, and seems to be sufficient.
Okay, do we have comments, people? Okay, so let me share, as we think about our questions, because I don't want to believe that we don't have questions. As we think about our questions, let me just share my own experience, right? Yeah, so the reason we are here is to talk about real life soft skills, and really it doesn't come naturally to everybody. You know, I saw a slide on presenting to management. Which of these two slides would you use? I saw another slide on if you want to ask for a raise, how would you go about putting your sentence together or putting your business case? In my own field, it's called business case for a raise. How will you put together your thoughts and your facts on business case? Will you just say, oh, I closed 10 p.m., I work so hard, please promote me? Like, are you begging? Versus showing the real data, showing how you have impacted and giving value, and then saying, oh, do you want to consider this in my performance appraisal and all of that? You know, so these are subtle things that we really don't talk about. Let me give an example. Yeah, I just realized that there are some roles that are not advertised. They say these things, but I didn't know it was that serious. Maybe because all the jobs I've gotten, they are proper advertised roles, and you apply, and from like 150 people, they get the 100 people that they need, and everybody is fine. You know, so I didn't really see the power of networking till I think December last year. And then I advertised, I reached out to somebody on LinkedIn, and somehow that's how I got my new role. Now there's somebody in Ruby that I'm trying to help with a position in my company. And I spoke to the HR, and the guy made it clear that we don't advertise some roles because, I mean, it's lean. My office is very lean. It's a big four, but it's a lean big four, right? So I can imagine for a 6-man HR team, they won't put a role online and have 500 people. How would they scale down 500 people to 10? So they'll rather tell the staff members to say, oh, do you know anybody? And then they get 20 CVs and they work with 20 CVs. So imagine the Felicia of those days waiting for one advert online. Do you understand? So everything we've learned so far, when it comes to networking, when it comes to presentation, when it comes to understanding how to build bridges, they are very real, and they are as important as the hard skills we've learned so far. Please, I'm going to call us. So we have questions, we have comments. Somebody's hand is up. Whose hand is that? Okay, please go ahead. I see that your hand is up. I'm sure I can't pronounce your name. I don't want to murder the pronunciation. So please go ahead and speak.
Adam.
Hi, good evening. My name is Adam. I'll say this is a good presentation, and I think you guys are doing a very good job. I've been listening to Ken's submissions, and I think they are very great. Just want to add one or two. Regarding the, Ken will keep me honest here, the general modes, there is the veteran, there is the CIO, and then the SME. If you see it as a pyramid, then you want to start from somewhere where you have a base. The base would be a generalist mindset. Okay, so you entered technology space, some stumbled in, most guys in technology did not really go to school to learn about, have a degree in computer science or something. It's something out of interest or curiosity. Now, within that curiosity space, you would want to have a breadth. The challenge becomes whether you wanted to have the breadth and how deep is the breadth. Now, so what I mean is, there is power cooling, facility, network, security, infrastructure, software development, so on and so forth. That's the breadth I'm talking about. The danger becomes if you pick a certain specialization early in your career path, you are generally likely to remain a veteran. Because you would not have explored to see whether you had other interests or you have other interests in the technology space or not. And that's a trap that most people who end up residing in, let me call it, well-structured companies from the start. That's a trap they fall in. Most young engineers who start from companies that are not so structured become quite vast in their expertise. And that is a good start point not to fall in the trap of a veteran. You need to whip up a certain interest much quicker than, because like Ken said, it's a very dynamic environment. You cannot keep anything static for the next 3 years. Now, how you move to the next 3 years will be dependent on the history you already have with regard to your interest areas from history or from your history as far as technology is concerned. I was discussing with Ken a while ago. I'm for somebody who describes themselves as a technology generalist than to say an SME. Because when you say an SME, you have naturally narrowed yourself or your concept or your mind or even your career to where you want to be. Now, if you follow Ken's presentation properly, you realize that he decided to have a certain breadth, and then as soon as he thought he had the breadth, somebody pulled him into a role and from that role, he also identified that the role that he was playing then will be obsolete in the next 5 years. He made a certain jump again, just because he had a breadth. Some will say because he has a career plan, but you might not really be able to put a structure to your career plan if you don't have general knowledge about a lot of things. So it is good to learn everything that comes, how it works, understand general principles, so on and so forth. I hope I'm making sense of what I'm communicating.
Thank you.
Ken, thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't get your name, please.
My name is Adam.
Adam, okay. Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, so do we have comments? Does anybody else want to share? I said interactive session, though. We are super quiet. Super quiet. Okay, so let me share something on career sponsorship. Okay, wait, let me ask you a question. There was something I put on the group. The reason we are quiet, I don't get. So let me ask us a question since we are not asking the facilitator a question. Let me pick what I have on the group. So I said we're going to talk about smart career goals, networking across the organization, transitioning into a new space, career visibility, attracting a sponsor, and navigating office politics. So I have 2 questions for us, since we don't want to ask questions. But at any point you want to ask a question, please feel free to interrupt me. Okay, so career sponsorship. Who here wants to share what you understand by a career sponsor or having a career sponsor? Do you know somebody that has a career sponsor? Do you know the concept of career sponsorship? Does anybody want to share? Anybody? Nana. Let me start calling questions. Let me start calling people, sorry. Nana, are you here?
Hi, I'm here, yes.
Okay, maybe it's what we do in tech anyway, but in my own field, and I think in banking too, it's a familiar concept. Yeah, so Nana, do you want to share? I'm calling you. It's not anything. It's not like I'm putting you on the spot, but maybe having a career sponsor. That's what is called online on LinkedIn. Yeah. Do you have any experience or have you read on it before? Have you watched? There was a podcast I watched on it recently. Do you understand the concept of career sponsorship? Because the reason I put that thing on the group is such that we can ask questions around it. And then we've had the session. The session is over, and I'm not sure we touched it and nobody's asking questions. So is it clear to everybody? Not just now, bright. We can close the meeting, but I want us to get the best of it before we go. It's 8:32, so yeah, we can close the meeting, but do we catch everything that needed to be addressed?
Please correct me if I'm wrong. The whole concept of career sponsorship borders around what we would usually call internship programs. Am I correct?
Oh, would call what?
What we would generally call internship programs.
Please go ahead. Maybe when you continue, I'll get what you're saying, please.
Okay, so when I say internship programs, I basically am trying to say a situation where it either may be paid internship or free internship. But the key thing here is more about the experience that that individual will be getting, right? So I'm looking at the whole concept of career sponsorship in that light. And that's why I'm asking, it's that understanding correct, or is that, are there loopholes basically?
Thank you for sharing. I'm very excited that I called you so that you can share what you think versus what I think. I'm going to share the podcast in the group we are joining tomorrow as alumni. I'm done with Jacinth, basically. So there's a podcast on it. There's a LinkedIn article on it. And please, the senior professionals on the group, please, if I'm wrong, Aiden and Kenneth, please, if I'm wrong, please correct me. In my own career world, career sponsorship is, so it depends on where you work. Some people make it a very formal arrangement. So if you join, most likely, if you join a multinational, you would have a career coach or a career sponsor or a career counselor, whatever it's called. So the person is very senior and the person is going to be in your performance appraisal meetings, the meetings that decide the decisions around promotions are taken. So it depends. You may report to the person and you may not report to the person, but the person is just there to be in first those meetings to speak for you and to have some kind of mediation when there's an issue. So the person is very, very senior. So the idea is to have somebody who is like your boss's boss, who you are visible with. You know, we talked about visibility, and who has your back. So it helps with career trajectory. Now, some people may have the person in their organization. Like I said, the person will be in those meetings. So for instance, Big Fours usually have a career counselor, a career coach. And once you're in a level, everybody would have that person, yeah? But once in a while, if you don't have it in an organization as a formal arrangement, it's something you can do on your own. Like I said, if not give me the opportunity to meet someone, Kenneth is very visible. Within the hour before we started at 7 p.m., I saw him on LinkedIn doing some live, training and all of that. So you can also reach out to people, have some sort of an arrangement with them, and they guide you. They give you insights, and you just learn the ropes from them, really. So it's not sponsorship as a job or something. It's just somebody who has been there, who can help you see the journey that is 5 years ahead of you, or 6 years ahead of you, 7 years ahead of you, basically. Please, at this point, I want Kenneth and Aiden to please take it up. But that's my experience. So yes, I've been privileged to work in places where those arrangements are formal. Mm-hmm. But then, in addition to who the firm has given you as your career coach, if you like someone who is going your way, you can also reach out to the person that's within the organization. And I know some people also have such arrangements outside of their organization. Yeah.
Okay, let me. I think a simple way to even put it is that if you can think of a career sponsor as your mentor, as your mentor within the workspace. The person you look up to, you take your problems to. In some cases, you may be able to escalate issues around your relationship with your direct boss to him, because it's trying to make sure that you don't get politically pushed out, and that you're learning, you're staying relevant to the organization and so forth. Like Felicia said, in some organizations it's formal, in some it's not. Like in my organization, it's not formal like that, except we have a few programs. Like I did some CLP programs some time ago. After the program, we now pair you with someone to either pair you with someone senior, or you put you in groups to help each other grow. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. My environment can be very busy. Recently, I think they're also doing, there's a leadership program too, where after the whole theoretical stuff, you now have pairs where people help you to imbibe and incorporate the learnings within the work culture. So generally, think of it as a mentor within the space. And I think you can find mentors for yourself too, people who can help you grow. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Okay.
I'd like to say that this is very important. For instance, I just moved roles recently, and by myself, I went on LinkedIn to have a career mentor who is not in my organization. Because like I said, the organization will give me, right? But somehow I wanted that breadth. I heard it didn't say something like, Ken could see that in a few years' time, the tech space he was in may, deep and all of that when it comes to relevance, and it switched, breadth of foresight, So I didn't just want to be all about my own particular organization. So I looked at the competition, and I looked at the particular level, and I went on LinkedIn to search people like that in my unit in a competition, and I got someone, and I said, this is what I want us to do. Like, it was very clear in the LinkedIn chat. I want to have a buddy. Now, some people call it buddy, yes, but I call it buddy because I didn't want him to run away. Most people, when you say you want them to mentor you, they will run away. They'll say, So I didn't want him to run away. So I said, I just joined this place, and I deliberately want a senior manager to mentor me. That can you be my buddy? Sorry, to be my buddy. He gladly accepted because I know he's mentor. A lot of people, they have. So that's the scope I'm telling us now. I'm teaching us. You can see someone online. Once you say mentor, they'll not even reply your LinkedIn message. I'm telling you. Because their plates are full. These people also have other commitments. So you can intentionally, especially for those of you that work, or those of us that work in places where those arrangements are not formal. There was a time I was having a hard time. In just these few months, I called him. I said, please. But luckily for me, he's an ex where I work. So I called him. I said, this is what I'm having with my boss. And he said, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Like Ken said, the person will be there to mediate. The person will be there to share insights. Omolola, you said no to my question on the chat. Is this something you want me to pick up? So we will be done in 5 minutes. I'm just taking this time to see if anybody has something to say, a question. Tayo, do you have a question? Tayo, you are usually quiet. Can you speak? Do you have a question? Tayo, Michael.
No, I'm good. Good evening. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. That's fine. Who else is there? Bright. I'm not sure I heard Bright's voice. Bright, Isaac.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. Yeah, I don't have a question. Thank you for the session.
Okay.
These are looking suspicious.
You saw my face, Abby?
Yeah, I saw it. You're looking suspicious.
Because you're not talking cryptocurrency today, you're quiet.
I was listening now. Who soft skill? Who soft skill? No help. Yeah, all of us now. I was actually listening.
I like that. Soft skill helps everybody. Okay, now, so this is
I am looking for a sponsor.
Okay, like I said, maybe I'll show you what I sent to the. I can code, Sha. Okay, let me try to code. Okay, so it's like you work in Amazon, right? And you need somebody in AliExpress. That's what I did. So I just spoke to somebody in competition because I feel like, okay, luckily, the person that I spoke to just left my own company like 3 or 4 months ago. So he understands what's happening in my company. So he gives me direct, he knows my bosses to say, tell this person this, tell this person that kind of thing. So if you want a sponsor, don't forget, it works naturally with some of us. Me, I'm an extrovert, so I can reach out on LinkedIn, I can do cold calls. Even if you're a quiet person, it's a skill we all can learn, and that's why we have this session. So maybe I'll just share some of those conversations that I've had on LinkedIn with people. Hello, okay, are you there? I'll just share those maybe templates and then share with us. Even to reach out to people for jobs too. I mean, there's a way you couch the message that person will not run away.
Come inside now. Come inside.
Phrases to use. Okay, I have to mute you. Okay,
sorry for that. Sorry for that.
No problem. No problem. I hope you are listening. Or do you want to go over it again?
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Yeah. So there are messages that there are words you need to use. Like we saw the slide that was presented. A presentation to your management. 2 options. One is a total put off. One is more appealing. Conversations around a raise. One would catch the attention of whoever you're speaking to because the person wants to see numbers. The person wants to see. One looks like you're talking beggarly, and that's a turn off. So also when you reach out to people on LinkedIn, when you reach out to people, cold calls, there are words, there are phrases that sounds like, okay, like to have a conversation with this person versus this person who's just looking for what to take and all of that. So, okay, I hear your career sponsorship. I'll see you in the alumni group. I think we're done. Thank you very much, Kenneth, for coming. I'm very honored that I can always reach out to you and you come around to the group I lead and you just give us 1-2 hours of your precious time. Thank you so much for coming.
Welcome.
Please, can we all unmute and appreciate Kenneth Igiri? You guys should follow him on LinkedIn. He's doing massive work right there.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kenneth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for.
Thank you
so
much.
Thank you, Mr. Kenneth.
The insights. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Kenneth, this time around, I'll make sure I share this recording.
Yes,
because I remember in Ruby, I don't know what happened in Ruby and I lost the recording. But this time around, I'll make sure I share the recording. Thank you, guys. So tomorrow we disband the group and we all join the people in Ruby and we continue to live our lives as digital tech alums. Thank you, Kenneth. I'll reach out to you too. I would really like you to be on the alumni group. I would really like you to be there. So I'll reach out to you to give you more details on what we plan to do on the joint alumni.
Let's see how it goes. Thank you.
All right.
I'll be expecting. All right. Bye then.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Yeah.